Colm said, I'm in the third year of my PhD and I'm studying Parkinson's disease. So for this talk, I just want to focus on three central questions. So firstly, what is Parkinson's disease? How can we improve the current therapies for Parkinson's disease? And what are the lifestyle factors that impact this? So firstly, as Colm said, I'm a neuroscientist, so I'm interested in the nervous system. And the center of the nervous system is your brain. And the brain actually controls almost everything that's going on in your body, so it's really important. The picture you see here is actually of the picture that you might see in the public domain. And it's what you see here is what's called the cerebral cortex. So it's that bit on top that has all those little lumps and bumps. And each area, you can see it's divided into 4 different parts, and they all perform a unique function. So this first area here, down the bottom, is right beside your ear, and that's the temporal lobe. So this is involved in language and hearing. The part at the back of your brain is called the occipital lobe, or the visual cortex, and that processes everything that you're seeing through your eyes. Then on top you have the parietal lobe, and that's involved in reading and sensory motor function. So that's sensation, when you touch off the table, what you feel. And then the bit at the front is called the frontal cortex, or frontal lobe, and that's involved in what we call executive function, so complex problem solving or decision making. And what you see less so is actually underneath this cerebral cortex, there's a load of really important brain areas underneath as well that perform other functions. So this area, I don't know if you can see it, this area here down the bottom, that's called the brainstem. And that's involved in things like sleeping, breathing, and your heartbeat, so basal functions that are actually subconscious. And then we have this area up here, a bit further up, and that's involved in regulating movement. So now that we understand how the brain functions in normal health, how does the brain malfunction? How can it? So we have acute disorders such as stroke, infections such as encephalitis or meningitis, and traumatic brain injury, which is actually talked about a lot in the media at the moment due to injuries from different sports. Then we have chronic diseases, which are, example of one is neurodegenerative diseases, and these are the result of a slow and progressive loss of neurons in the brain. And neurons are just the basic cell unit in your brain. There's also structural chronic diseases and prion diseases. And then we also have functional diseases. So these are mood disorders such as anxiety and depression, as you can see illustrated here in this artwork. Then there's thought disorders such as schizophrenia and excitability disorders, which we would know as epilepsy. So what I'm interested in is degenerative disorders. So what are neurodegenerative diseases? You can think of this as the big umbrella. In all of these diseases, the neurons in the brain die slowly, but there's a few different types. So we have Alzheimer's disease, which is characterized by memory loss, Parkinson's disease, which is movement problems, motor neuron disease, and Huntington's disease, which is a genetic disorder. And actually, we know a number of people with these diseases. So Ronald Reagan, before he died, became an advocate for Alzheimer's disease. Then you see Michael J. Fox and Muhammad Ali. And Michael J. Fox set up his own foundation to actually fund Parkinson's disease research. And then you see on the right here Stephen Hawking, who actually was the longest survivor with motor neuron disease. And what I'm interested in is Parkinson's disease. So what exactly happens to the brain in Parkinson's disease? So this is in that brain area that I was talking about that actually regulates movement. So right up here, we have some neurons. So the circles here are like the cell body, that's like the brain of the cell, and then they have these little processes coming out of them, and that's how they send messages to other cells. So when you decide you want to move, a message gets sent from your midbrain, which is just the middle of the brain, and these little molecules here get released, and these are called dopamine. And dopamine is really important in movement signaling. And this message then gets received by this brain area a little bit higher up, called the striatum, and then this results in movement. So what happens in Parkinson's disease is a number of these neurons in the midbrain area actually die. And then you can see here that you actually release way less of this dopamine molecule, there's less neurons in the striatum, and then this results in motor symptoms. So these can be rigidity, resting tremor, postural instability, and bradykinesia, which is a difficulty in initiating movement. So a number of different movement symptoms. So why do we need to research to improve the therapies for Parkinson's disease? What are the current therapies? So the main therapy or treatment is adding dopamine, so this signaling molecule here in the middle. We add more of this molecule. This then gets received by the striatum, and you get movement back. So that's what most Parkinson's patients will get, is this drug, and then this improves their movement problems. However, this is only effective in the short term, and it does not stop disease progression. So you can imagine, if disease keeps going, this area of the midbrain on the left, all of those neurons will continue to die. We can't make any more dopamine, and even if we add it in with a drug, if the neurons in the striatum keep dying, they can't respond to it. We can no longer fix these movement problems. And also, these have a number of disabling side effects after long-term use. So what do we want to do? The aim of our research is actually to protect these neurons before they die. We want to maintain this innervation and promote regeneration of dying neurons. There's two ways to do this. We can target what's called neurotrophic factors, and these are natural proteins that our brain actually makes during development to stimulate the growth of the brain. So what we want to do is find out how can we use these growth factors in adulthood to protect these neurons and get them to regenerate or maintain the innervation in the first place. The second way we can do this is what's called survival signaling. And basically, when we have a cell or a neuron, there's a number of little signals going on in the cell, and it can go one of two ways. It can promote survival, or it can promote cell death. So we want to look at these survival signaling pathways and figure out how can we get them to keep going and keep the cells alive. So the best way to explain this is if anyone has seen Stranger Things. So at some point in the series, Joyce arranges all these fairy lights in a row with the alphabet. And you can see here, each light corresponds to a letter of the alphabet. So if we think of that in relation to my pathway, each letter of the alphabet is a protein. I need all the proteins to have their lights on, to be working, in order for the cell to survive. And what happens is, when you take out your Christmas lights, and last year they were working, and this year they're not. Why? So you get them out, you roll them all out, and you start screwing every individual bulb to see can you fix them. And if you screw one in, and the whole thing turns back on. Yeah? So that's kind of what I want to do. I'm going to go through all of the lights and find which ones of them are off. I want to know why they're off, and how can I turn them back on again. And that's my PhD. And then I just wanted to mention, while we're here, a few lifestyle factors that influence healthy aging. So these are a few things that we can do ourselves to improve healthy brain aging. So on the left, you'll see a number of activities. So if we maintain exercise, stay social. So join a choir, join a club, play an instrument. Continue to do mental tasks, like the big craze of Sudoku and all those brain training things. Then you have try and manage stress and keep a positive attitude. Love your heart, so healthy eating and sleep. And most of all, really just a balance. Try to keep a balance of everything. So obviously, I don't work on my own. I work as part of a bigger team in UCC, between the School of Biochemistry and Cell Biology and Department of Anatomy and Neuroscience. And that's all part of the Cork Neuroscience Centre. So together, we want to work together to apply our knowledge to better develop therapies and improve the quality of life for people living with all major brain diseases. Thanks.
Okay, that's fantastic. So, any questions here for Rachel?
Everybody understood? Yeah.
And we are involved in
No, so apoptosis is causing cell death, but that's the opposite of what I want. Because in Parkinson's, all the neurons are dying. So if I promote cell death even further, inhibit cell death pathways. Yeah, and there is other people that are looking at that. It's not what I'm doing, but it is another thing. Like there's loads of different ways that they're looking at it. Like, cause, yeah, the main target is just to stop those cells from dying. Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
Jason.
Sounds like that. That's pretty good. I don't want to ask that. How do you propose to turn them back on? What
Yeah, we can go into that. So, probably too detailed. So, yeah, what I'm looking at is most of the time Parkinson's disease is what we call sporadic. So we don't know what causes it or why it happens. But one way that we can actually study this is 5% of patients have genetic mutations that cause Parkinson's. So in this way we can look at a wild type and a control, we would say. Wild type as a control, and then the particular gene mutation. And I'm basically looking at this signaling pathway and comparing what's on in the normal case and what's off in Parkinson's. And then when I figure out what's off, you could then either, you want to stimulate that pathway, so I'm looking at a particular pathway which is activated by IGF. So you could try to turn that on again to stimulate that growth, but also then obviously we want it to be specific to the brain area that the neurons are dying. I don't want to promote growth everywhere. That would be that.
Is there any more? So thank you, Rachel, for speaking with us.